if you can, but okay, can you guys see that? Okay.
Yes.
Sweet. Okay, so I'm going to be presenting on my class task. I've worked this semester on getting our data loggers working for the pressure transducers. So jumping into it. So here's kind of the required equipment you need for getting to start logging pressure. I'm going to go more into detail on kind of each aspect of these in the later slides. But all this equipment is going to be in the equipment bags in the IIAC room. So when it is in there, I haven't figured out like a good case to put it in or anything yet. But when I do get it up there, just make sure to keep it all kind of together so we don't get any separated or lost. But the equipment you need is the pressure transducer with your adapter, the data logger, a power source for the pressure transducer, and a computer to kind of set up the data logger. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that the system in question has a pressure within the range of one of the pressure transducers you're using. So we actually have two pressure transducers, one that's for 0 to 200 psi and one that's for 0 to 100 psi. I'm sure we'll get more in the future, but that's what we have currently. And one advantage to using the 100 psi is that you're actually going to get a higher resolution of your data when you're data logging. So that might be a reason why you want to use the lower instead of just using a higher range. But other than that, it should, just if you have anything above 100 psi, you're obviously going to want to use the 200 psi data logger. So let's see once it changes. So on each of the pressure transducers, there's going to be 3 connections. The first is going to be your input for the pressure for the system in question. Your second is going to be your power input for the pressure transducer. And your third is going to be the connection for the data logger. It's going to be your signal out from the pressure transducer to the data logger. And that's all displayed in this picture. So to set up one of the pressure transducers, you're going to need to figure out how you want to power it. There's going to be 2 options. You can either use a wall adapter or a battery that we have. The wall adapter, there's only going to be about 8 feet of cable that you're going to use. That's including the cable on the pressure transducer to the wall adapter. So if there's not going to be a plug within reach, you can use one of the batteries that are in the equipment bag. If you're going to be running cable across walking areas or kind of any high traffic areas or an area where it might get removed from the wall, it's just going to be best if you use the battery, just so you don't have any kind of inadvertent power outages or anything like that while you're trying to record the data for the pressurized system. So setting up the wall adapters really easy. All you really need to do is plug in the adapter to the barrel jack and obviously set up the other things. But yeah, it's just a barrel jack that you plug in straight into the pressure transducer and it should start working. Battery's a little bit different, but it's very similar. You're actually going to have to use a adapter that goes, I don't know if you can see this. Let's see, I think this works. So this adapter right here, we're going to have in the bag as well. It has like another end right here that's not going to be used, but it basically has the worm barrel jack that plugs into the battery pack, and then the other one that plugs straight into the pressure transducer. So for these, the battery pack is going to have about 3 weeks when fully powered. It's going to be the equipment manager's job to verify that these are properly charged prior to an assessment. And they will lose some battery while sitting there, especially if it's going to be in like a cold environment or anything like that. So make sure to turn it on and check prior to the assessment that it's going to be charged up. But yeah, I mean, it has 3 weeks of power, so it should be able to last however long you're going to be leaving the data loggers there. It should be more than we need. They do have like a USB 5-volt output as well if you need to charge anything, but yeah, they it should give us 3 weeks. So setting up the data logger is going to be pretty much very similar to like the CTs we have. Setting up one of the data loggers for those. So I'm in this example, I'm going to just be using the U12 data logger that we have, but it's super similar. You're going to open the HoboWare, and you're going to come to the home screen. You're going to go to the top left of that main screen, and you're going to hit the launch device button. And once you hit that, this is going to open up the launch logger window. And let's see, so yeah, next you're going to want to name the logger once you get it opened up. Make sure that's like a name that's going to be easily identifiable for when you're picking up the loggers, and don't assume someone else is going to have the exact location where it's at. I think it's best to like have a very descriptive name right there so you know exactly what it's logging and what line it's on. Luckily, there's not going to be a lot of pressure transducers we're going to be putting out in facilities, but still, I think it's good to have a descriptive name there so you know exactly what it is. Next, you're going to go down and select if you want to do like any of the temperature, relative humidity, or light data points. But in the fourth one, you're going to want to open that up and then go down to the gauge pressure option there. And gauge pressure, you're going to want to select the 100 or 200 psi. We don't have any 500 psi. I don't know if we're ever going to have any 500 psi. But yeah, just make sure you select either the 100 or 200 psi there. If you're using like a 100 and you accidentally select the 200, it's just going to double your psi values. But then next, it's pretty much the same. You're going to enter in your unit names there. It's just going to be in psi in these, and then change your logging interval. And one thing I learned that I didn't know is that you can set a custom interval down at the bottom of the list, and so you can select like in this case I select like 15 seconds, so you can have exactly the length you need. But then you're going to want to change where you start logging. In this case, I do like a on date time option and set it for a specific time. Fairly simple. Once you're done there, you're going to just click the start button down at the bottom right, and that'll take you back to the home screen. And then one thing I like to do is click device status up in the top left, and that's going to make sure that you're going to open that up and be able to check, make sure all your options are correct. Like, make sure that it's going to be having the right logging interval and everything, and that everything's saved that you just put in there. But then once you do that, then it should be ready to just plug into the pressure transducer. So with the pressure transducer, the threads on it is a 1/4 inch NPT. We're going to have to most likely use like an adapter. You might find some facilities that you can just plug that straight in to their system. But we'll have, I don't know if I haven't gotten any couplers yet. I think we have some of these fittings on the right side. But these are probably going to be the most two common we'll see. I didn't put anything in here on like installing them, but it should be fairly easy. You just want to make sure you use Teflon tape for both of them prior to then. Right here, I have a video linked. I'll put the slides up on Box afterwards so you can go to the video and watch it. But installing Teflon tape is fairly simple. One thing is you just want to make sure you're going, if you're facing the front of it, you're going in a clockwise direction. So when you tighten it, it's actually tightening the tape and not getting it bunched up and loosening. But yeah, it's fairly simple to do that. Just make sure you're putting that on all the threads, and that's going to help prevent any sort of leaks on the data loggers or on the pressure transducer when you install it. And then any future development on this AR. As for like the pressure loggers, I couldn't think of anything else we'd do, but one thing I noticed is that OnSite actually has a lot of other sensors as well. And so in the future, someone could go on, maybe try to, for a new class task, maybe go look at other sensors they might have. I know they have some airflow. I don't know like exactly what that entails, but I know they have some like airflow sensors, CO2 sensors, differential pressure sensors, and there's a lot of others. So it might be beneficial to look at other sensors in the future to see if those could help with any other ARs. Another thing we could work on is, I know we do have a lot of sensors already, and I think coming up with a list for each sensor saying like, these are potential ARs that this piece of equipment could help get data for. I think that'd be beneficial. And then I'm going to be adding in kind of a wiring diagram into Box along with these slides to kind of help with if we need to purchase any more and wire them up in the future after I've graduated, then I'll put that in there. But that's pretty much everything I have. So is there any questions?
Yeah, I actually had a quick question.
Yeah.
So if we were to take the 200 PSI transducer and, accidentally put it on something that's like 300 PSI, would that damage the equipment? Like, is that something that we need to be concerned about?
I haven't
like
looked
actively aware of?
Yeah, I don't know if like the diaphragms or whatever is in there will break. I'm sure they put in some sort of like factor safety so they don't, but I haven't checked. So I would say to be safe, kind of check the set points or any dials you can on the system prior to make sure it's below that. But yeah, I'll look at the data sheet and verify for you, Conrad, and get back to you. But
cool, thanks. Great presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else have a question? Okay. I think we're definitely going to try it out next semester when we go back to the central plant, because central plant, we tried to install these and they didn't work. The main preface of Quinn's project this semester. So
okay. Thank you.
It's awesome. Thanks, Quinn.